found myself sweeping, mopping, disinfecting, taking out the trash, cleaning toilets, like literally cleaning shit. Uh, and man, it's just been a wild, 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 wild ride to get from where I was then to where I am now. This is the story of how magic mushrooms convinced me to run 100 miles. Yes, that sounds insane. And fuck, I might be. But it's a pretty cool place to be at. I can't lie. Uh, you know, 4 years ago, I was a very different person than I am today. I had moved from the Northeast to Tampa, Florida, with the intent of changing my life, looking for a new start. And I came down from the Northeast with a bunch of bad habits, a bunch of bad mental traps that I had kept myself in. And when I started to use psilocybin mushrooms, I recognized the power to reverse a bunch of those things. I had a 10-year cocaine problem. I was buying it an ounce at a time, spending about $1,200 a pop on coke. I would drink every weekend, had that like, wake up on Monday, I'm never drinking again, and then have another drink that same fucking night kind of problem. Um, had chewing tobacco, porn, gambling, so on and so forth. I watched fucking every football game, baseball game I could. Uh, I just wasn't living a life that I was meant to live. I was living a life that I had convinced myself that society wanted me to live, and mushrooms helped me to recognize the power to change that for myself. And so, there's a bunch of times throughout this that I'm going to use, God, the universe, mushrooms interchangeably. That might sound a little crazy to some of you. There's lightning going on outside right now. That might sound a little crazy to some of you, but I believe that mushrooms give us the ability to tap into God, the universe, source, whatever name you want to use for the divine source of energy that helps to dictate our lives. And so I'm going to take you kind of through the story of how this all came to be, because back in 2022, the first thing that they did was help me recognize that all my problems were my fault and not everyone else that I decided to blame up until that point in my life. And so, like, with that came a huge sense of relief that, once I recognized that things were my fault, I recognized that things were within my power to change. And so, I could start to change all of these things about myself that I didn't like, whether it was the habits or just the way that I approached conversations, the way that I viewed people, like my values in general as a person. And, I went through this 6 experience process, and, it centered around a trip to EDC, which is a 3-day EDM festival here in Orlando, Florida. And it centered around that. And the wild thing is that on the final day there, um, I had this realization that like so many things in my life had completely shifted from just a month before when I tried mushrooms for the first time. I no longer had a desire to do cocaine. I no longer had an alcohol problem. I, could just evaluate choices with discernment. And that was really the biggest thing, right? Is that it gave me the ability to evaluate the decisions that I was making on a case by case basis. It wasn't just, following the things that I had done so far to this point in my life that had got me here safe. It was, no, what do I actually want for myself? And so, it gave me that clarity to be able to dictate the way that my life was going to move from that point forward. And I recognized that it was this like insane superpower of autonomy. Uh, yeah, I mean, I guess that's the best way to put it. Um, an insane superpower of autonomy. And once I recognized that, I recognized that, if mushrooms can give me the ability to do all of these things that I'd wanted to for so long in my life and just never had the ability or courage or confidence or, whatever thing we want to attribute it to. Um, Once I recognized that, they gave me the ability to do all of these incredible things, just setting do not disturb on. I once I recognized the ability that they gave, once I recognized that they had given me the ability to make all these incredible changes in my life, I had a moment where I recognized that like the only thing that changed for me was how I thought about life, how I thought about myself. And, the saying, your mindset is your reality came to me, which became the title of my book, which followed later, which kind of documents this whole experience. And so, if you want to hear more about that, you can pick that up. It's, an audiobook, it's in paperback, it's in hardcover, it's on Amazon, Audible, anyway. Um, yeah, so I had the realization that you create your reality with your thoughts, and that the only thing that had changed in my life over the last month was how I decided to think about life and think about myself and think about the way that certain things had happened to me and my role in them. And in that moment, I recognized that if I can make that type of change for myself, that mushrooms can also help other people make that same type of change for themselves. And it was this like, oh my God, holy shit moment where I'm, talking to God at a music festival. I know that sounds fucking stupid, but I'm talking to God at a music festival. And uh, I have the download, the message from him that I need to help people in the same way that I was helped, to tell my story, which was really the first message that I got. Right, just tell people about this, and that was the inspiration for the book. Um, and help other people. And so I had the big question of like, how do I do that? And uh, when I got back from EDC and I'm reflecting and I'm talking to God, I'm asking, how do I do that? How do I help people? And I get the download that I'm a talented writer. I had, I don't know, I don't need to qualify it. If you want to read my book, you can read my book. But I had the realization that I'm a talented writer and I had the ability to bring my thoughts to life and really take people through the experience that I had and be able to paint a picture for them very eloquently. And so I started writing, and I have this newfound passion for mushrooms, right? Because they help me make these incredible changes in my life. And so I want to get into that space and start doing something to help other people in the same way that I had been. And so I go to this conference 4 hours south of me in Miami, called Canadelic. And Canadelic has speakers all over the psychedelic and cannabis space, and I'm expecting there to be an opportunity to latch on with a company and get a job in this space. And so I go down there like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and looking for something. And when I'm there, I recognize that that is not going to happen. Uh, because the industry wasn't at a point where people were, sucking people up to have jobs. Just because I had an incredible experience that changed my life, that was just one of millions of these type of experiences. And so, I recognized that I needed to do something for myself if I was going to do anything in the space. And so, I come home from that like pretty dejected, like just like looking for this next stage in my life, a new start, the things that's really going to be a difference maker for me. And I keep asking God, like, what do I need to do? Like, show me the way, point me in the right direction. Like, I want to do something. I'm ready for this next stage in my life. I'm working this job that I'm selling websites to real estate agents. It's super unfulfilling. It's not who I am as a person. And sorry, LP. uh, yeah. And so I'm doing this job that I just am not connecting with. And I recognize that I want to make a bigger impact. I want to do something more with my life. But I just keep getting the response, just keep writing, just keep writing, just keep writing. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I don't want to spend all my time writing. This is laborious. This is, taking away my weekends, like yada, yada, yada. It's like such a fucking process to get this thing done. It ended up taking a year and a half to complete the book. But just keep writing is the message that I keep getting. And so like, fuck, okay, I just keep writing. So all of 2023, I'm experimenting more with mushrooms, like looking for the same type of radical change that happened when I had the, for the 4 week experience that changed my life. But I'm not getting there. And I recognize that, I need to start doing things for myself rather than just asking the mushrooms what to do. And so, um, the end of the year starts to roll around, and I interview and I get a new job. I'm now selling services of a physician to personal injury attorneys. More on that to come later. But near the end of 2023, I decide to rip off the band-aid on something that had long been something that I wanted to try, and that's to do a Spartan race. And Spartan races are obstacle course races. They're through the woods or up mountains or whatever. This one was in Central Florida, so through the woods, through swampland, 30 different obstacles. It was a half marathon, and I signed up for that having prepared zero, having not won in 10 years, but saying, what, fuck it. I was an athlete in my former life. I'm a strong dude. I've done a lot of lifting. I can figure out how to get my ass over 13 miles. And it sucked ass. It was, I mean, it didn't suck ass. It was one of the best experiences of my life, but it was extremely difficult. It was extremely challenging. I was cramping all over the place. I didn't understand nutrition, but I powered through to the finish line. And um, in that, I kind of unlocked this new thing for myself where I said, holy shit, I'm stronger than I gave myself credit for. If I can just go out and do a half marathon Spartan and finish in the top 5%, which I did, humble brag, then I can do a lot more than I'm giving myself credit for. Let's see how deep this rabbit hole goes. And so I went into 2024 with that new job, with this new vigor for chasing down challenges, and so I started 2024 with the plan of doing 75 hard to completely remove alcohol from my life. Up until that point, it had been like a couple of drinks here and there kind of thing, not a problem by any means, but just doing more harm than good for my health, because even one drink is more harm than good for your health when it comes to alcohol. Uh, anyway, so I did 75 hard, and that like really locked me into this next stage of my life where I recognized that, I was going to go all in to taking care of myself and seeing how far I could push with this kind of thing. And a month into this new job where I'm selling to personal injury attorneys, yeah, fulfilling, just exactly what I was looking for, right? It actually kind of was. Like, I thought I was going to make a difference for people who had been injured in claims, but, not really the case when you're dealing with personal injury attorneys. Anyway, a month and a half into this new job, I go out and I play pickleball with one of my friends, and he can tell that my mind is not on the game. I'm stressed about this new job. I'm feeling unfulfilled. It's not what I want in life, and so we go out, we eat dinner. Shout out Johnny. Whoa! I don't know if you can hear that lightning. That was pretty crazy. So I go out and I have dinner with my buddy Johnny, and then we have a very nice conversation. And he's a man of God, and up until that point, I had not been, even though I said I had a connection with God at EDC. To me, at that point, it was just the mushrooms. But I leave that dinner with him, and I go to bike home. And as I'm biking home, I get a message from God for, you know, I don't know. I'll say the first time. I recognize it as the first time. But the message says, your night's not done. You can't go home. You have to stay out. And so rather than biking into my apartment complex, I turned towards the St. Pete Pier. I live in St. Petersburg now. And I head towards the St. Pete Pier, and I biked like hell to the end of the pier, and I got to the end, and I broke down fucking crying at the end of the pier. I put my head on the railing, and I just let the tears fall from my face, and they formed a puddle on the ground, and I just couldn't stop sobbing. Just like emotion, just viciously coming out of me. Um, and I broke down. I really broke down. Uh, and I sat on the grass at the end of the pier, and I looked up at the stars, and God came to me, and He said, "Dude," and I say this the same way every time, but yeah, God does say, "Dude." He says, "Dude, I've sent you intuition your whole life, and you've decided not to listen. Are you ready to start listening?" And I said, "Yeah." And so I was told, "Okay, so you know what you need to do with your job." So I quit that. You know what you're meant to do, and that's to be in the fitness space. So I got my personal training certification, and I started going towards that. And so, kind of like message after message after message started to come, where, I started to get these downloads that just pointed me in the right direction. And, you know, a number of things happened, including meeting my wife, and, I would really love to share that story, but it's a little too much for what we're trying to get to right now. So maybe I'll save that for a different day. But it's really fucking beautiful. But it really helped me to, um, you know, consistently find the right things that were meant for me in life, including meeting the founder of Canadelic, being invited to speak at a Canadelic, which I've now spoken at 3 times. Um, it motivated me to get my book done and published and everything like that, and I ended up meeting my wife. Um, but I kept finding this challenge yourself kind of calling. And when I had the download after I got back from EDC to write the book and help people and share my story and try to make an impact for people, the question was like, how? I am an unremarkable person. Like, this story is amazing, but nobody nobody gives a shit. Like, I'm just a fucking speck. It doesn't matter. Um, and now I realize that, like, me being called to challenge myself and do all this physical stuff was really just a way to get my story in front of more people. And I recognize now that, like, you know, as I'm going through this, that I'm being used as a way to get this message to people, that mushrooms have an incredible potential to help people. And it wasn't just, you know, all that. Fuck, man, I didn't even get into the ultra marathons yet, right? Um, okay, let me back up. So, August of 2024, I go out to Colorado and I meet my family out there for a family reunion. And while I'm out there, I decide to try to hike up one of the tallest mountains in the United States, 14,000 foot Pikes Peak Mountain. And going up there, I realized that going from zero elevation to 14,000 feet elevation within the span of 24 hours is a dumb fuck idea. And so I get my ass off that mountain and I realize that, there are some challenges that I cannot rise to. But 2 weeks after that, I get a call from a friend asking me to join him on a 46-mile ultra marathon. And so I joined that race 5 days later, uh, doing the whole race, not pacing him, let me clarify. Uh, and so I joined that race 5 days later, and I take one step at a time, and one step at a time, one step at a time, and I break down, and my body's like fucking screaming at me to quit, and I'm moving so slowly. Like, I did the last 13 miles in like 4.5 hours or something like that, just like absolutely crawling in so much pain. I couldn't walk the next couple of days, but I made it through. And that like helped to rewrite the story of what I'm capable of again. And so I went into 2025 knowing that I was in this challenge myself season of my life. And so I got the calling to do a strongman event, which I've now done 2 of. I ran a marathon the week after doing my strongman event. I did a DECA fit. Uh, anyway, um, I do that 46 mile. I do that 46 mile ultra marathon in 2024, and so I have this like big challenge myself mentality, and I go into 2025 thinking like, okay, what is something that I can do that's going to blow my own mind physically? Like, I really want to surprise myself with what I'm capable of and just like really push the boundaries. And, the thought of running 100 miles or even 200 miles comes up. And honestly, the Across Florida 200, which is what I had circled on my calendar initially. But I go and I do that 46 miler in August a second time. And again, it kicks my fucking ass. I thought that, just being healthy and off alcohol for another year and taking care of myself would help me to power through this and like crush the time from the year before. But I only shaved 37 minutes off, from 11 hours and 48 minutes to 11 hours and 11 minutes. But uh, I also recognized that I hadn't really been preparing. I'd just been relying on pure athleticism. So I'm like, okay, how do I get from here to 200 miles in the next 2 months. And I recognized that no matter how much training I put in, that I would be extremely underprepared for 200 miles. And that it was something that, I could do and I could suffer through. But what's the point of that if it's going to be that, I don't know, and difficult's not even the right word, because like I crave difficulty. But I crave difficulty in the way that makes me feel accomplished for achieving it, not for uh, not for driving myself into the ground with effort and pain and everything like that. So I decided that a good pivot would be to do the Tampa Bay 100 right here in my backyard. It ended right here in St. Pete, so it was perfect. And it gave me 2 full months to prep and get my miles in and be able to actually show up and do this in a way that made me proud. And so the goal of a 100-mile ultra marathon is to finish a majority of the time, right? But if you ask people about times, they'll say that the cutoff between contenders and pretenders is 24 hours. If you can finish 100 miles in under 24 hours, you're considered, you know, somebody who actually takes this semi seriously. And so that was my goal going into the race, though I wouldn't tell anybody because it seemed too audacious to really broadcast. But I trained my fucking ass off, and by the end of the race, I crossed the finish line in 23 hours flat. The next day, I went and spoke at Canadelic about what mushrooms had done for me to get me from where I was doing alcohol and coke and yada yada yada. And oh my god, like waking up with so many fucking horrendous memories. It's yeah, just something to be on the side of it. Uh, yeah, to go from that person to the person who was able to complete 100 miles in under 24 hours. And it's just an insane thing to go through this type of life change. And you know I share this because I want people to understand that, like, I'm not special. I am somebody who I would have laughed at the thought of the old me doing what I do now physically. My friends from that part of my life laughed at me when I said that I was an elite athlete. I am not special. I just decided to put in the work, and you can too. Whether it's running 100 miles, or whether it's building a business or writing a book or starting a family or whatever it is you want to do in life, you can do those things. Yes, you can. And I just want that to be the legacy that I live, is to be somebody who's helped inspire other people to do incredible things in their life. Um, I, I have a mission of helping people recognize the potential of psilocybin mushrooms to help them make incredible changes in their life. And I know I would not be where I am right now if it weren't for the experience with mushrooms. And that's even a joke. That's like such a joke to even say, like, oh my God, I would be nowhere close to where I am today. And it wasn't just that experience 3.5 years ago, right? I use them every 2 to 3 months. I do a large dose. I use them multiple times throughout the week in smaller doses. When I say large dose, I'm talking like 3 grams plus. When I say smaller doses, I'm talking under a gram. Um, and they've just helped me to continuously evolve, to ask myself what I want out of life, to connect with God and get messages and downloads that just point me in the right direction to do incredible things. And I just have so much gratitude for the experience that I had, and for God, for psilocybin, for showing me the way to get to where I am in life. Uh, yeah, man, I just think it's incredible, and I want to help. I want to help change the world's perspective on mushrooms and what's possible. So there's a little story about how mushrooms convinced me to run 100 miles and go tell the world about it. So uh, if you liked listening, I hope you did. Thanks. That race was 6 months ago. Since then, I've done 2 Spartan races over the last month. I finished third in my age group in both of those, so that's pretty fun. I came in first out of 9 people in a last man standing treadmill race that asked me to run 5 miles an hour every hour. I lasted 17 hours. I could have gone more, many more, but I lasted 17 hours, around 85 miles, and came in first place in that. So that was a bunch of fun. And yeah, man, I'm just trying to challenge myself in any way that I can and just become the best athlete that I can. I run a personal training business, Get Psyched Fitness. I help people make positive changes in their life. I wrote my book. I have a wife, and we have a baby on the way. Oh man, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful existence, and I have so much gratitude to give. And I hope that if you're listening to this too, you recognize that you can change your life. You can change it with mushrooms or without mushrooms or whatever, right? But you have the ability to change your life. You have the ability to take yourself incredible places, and go fucking do it, man. 4 years ago, I was cleaning toilets. Okay, 4.5 years ago, I was cleaning toilets. But yeah, come on. I was actually cleaning toilets. I was the regional operations manager for my stepdad's healthcare cleaning and disinfecting company. They needed somebody to help in New England, so I moved up to Connecticut and found myself sweeping, mopping, disinfecting, taking out the trash, cleaning toilets, like literally cleaning shit. Uh, and man, it's just been a wild, 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 wild ride to get from where I was then to where I am now. So anyway, thanks for listening. You can find me on Instagram, Johnny B. You can go to my school, Get Psyched Fitness. Yeah, I don't know. What's up? Say hi. Let's be friends.